Hello and welcome to the big picture. Periodically, we witness in this country serious debate on the issue of secularism and what it denotes and how it is interpreted and, more importantly, acted upon. This debate inevitably has also included the judiciary, which has interpreted it in its own ways at different points of time. The debate on secularism inevitably also leads to the questions about minorities, their rights, and how the Constitution treats them, and how they are treated in reality. Vice President M Ansari has triggered the latest round of debate on these issues while speaking at the Jammu University last weekend. His passionate plea to the Supreme Court to clarify the contours within which principles of secularism and composite culture should operate, and also how state and religion needs to be kept apart, has evoked varied responses. We will discuss today, in the context of the Vice President's speech, the role of the judiciary in safeguarding the minority rights, as well as its role in defining secularism. To discuss this, I have a panel which does not consist of any from the legal fraternity, as the endeavor is to see what those outside the legal profession thinks of the role of judiciary. Vivek Katju, former ambassador; Professor Pushpesh Pant, political analyst and former professor at the JNU; M Ansari, an economist who has held several important positions including Information Commissioner; Ashok Tandon, senior journalist and also former media advisor to Prime Minister Vajpayee; and Kamal Farooqui, former chairman, Delhi Minorities Commission. Welcome to all of you. Professor Pushpesh Pant, as a professor, I would like you to start off this.
No, Girish, I think you do me a disservice by saying that as a professor I should initiate the debate. I think as a person who's concerned about the future of this country, who thinks that he inherits a composite culture which this country is known for, I would like to react to this.
Yes.
I think the problem is that the Vice President is a very erudite person, and he has done a great service to the nation by raising this topic today. But I think to hope that the judiciary can play a role in either defining what composite culture is or making saner, rational people out of people who are driven by communal prejudices is a bit too much of an optimistic outlook.
Why? Why is it?
Because of the speech which we are discussing itself notes the fact that there is a great big chasm between what the Supreme Court in past, since independence, since its formation, has said and done. And I think what comes back to my mind is a title of a book edited by Rajiv Dhawan, Supreme but Not Infallible. So what happens is, the Supreme Court is not bound by its own past judgments. So Supreme Court, if it responds to the appeal of the Vice President, may define this. Some would think it is judicial overreach, but even if it is not judicial overreach, what stops in coming years another bench of the Supreme Court to give another interpretation? There is a Supreme Court view which says Hindutva is not an ideology which one should be scared, it's a way of life. Some other bench might have in its infinite wisdom and inherent folly, which is implied, maybe a different interpretation. How do you convince the people in this country at this moment of a different generation, of a post-1992 mindset, post-Babri, things, is not only the question of the rights of minorities, linguistic, religious or otherwise, is also an issue of the fears, misplaced totally maybe, of the majority community that past governments for vote bank politics have appeased minorities, regional, linguistic, etc. So I think we are living through very, as Chinese would say, interesting times, and it's not likely that the interesting times are going to change. So how does judiciary, suo moto on its own, give a fatwa about composite culture or secularism, which the rest of the country shall adhere to? I mean, if Supreme Court is not bound by its own past judgments, how is the rest of the country?
Okay, I mean, that's very interesting what you said, but it's also very disturbing what you say. In fact, you're saying that from what you're implying that we cannot, lay our trust on judiciary to come out with these kind of...
It's too much to expect the only judiciary to do it. And I think the speech makes two other points. It does mention the word secularism in the preamble, which most people with not so short memories remember was added almost unconstitutionally during the emergency. And what goes by the nature of composite culture is the Nehruvian interpretation of a composite culture and discovery of India, and which this country has thrown lock, stock and barrel with the rest of the Nehruvian heritage.
But if I recollect correctly, that article was also incorporated during the emergency.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Anyway, Mr. Ansari, how do you look at this? What Professor Pushpesh Pant says is very interesting, disturbing also. But, it's very interesting. Fali Nariman has written a piece, his article in response to what the Vice President has said, and he says, Mr. Nariman points out that in the 50s and up to the 70s, it was the judiciary which was actually defining all these things, but there seems to have been a problem later.
Well, I think expectations from the judiciary is not uncalled for. I think choosing the occasion where there was Chief Justice of India, and probably the Vice President tried to remind the fact that the justice is the core value of our Constitution. And when he flows in his speech, and he then talks about the secularism and the composite culture being the two sides of the same coin, and how important it is to promote secularism, and then and also to maintain composite culture. He also goes on to dwell on, and he explains his position that how the political parties, the political perception has been quite different, and that is the secularism being interpreted differently, and at the same time composite culture that we have been talking of is also is lacking insofar as the justice is concerned. And therefore, he calls upon the judiciary to play its own role, because here is the question of justice with respect to equality, fraternity, and ensuring that the minorities get what they look for. And I must also mention to you that he mentions and talks about the Kundu Committee report, where he talks about the inequality trap, and he says that the marginalized communities are likely to suffer more, and it is the dominant communities which are going to get the advantage, and they will continue to get. And he talks about the vicious circle in which the minorities are the other deprived groups are going to suffer. And therefore, I think when the Indian state in its policy or in practices has not been able to deliver, therefore he expects that these are all matters relating to the constitutional role, justice, and therefore he calls upon the judiciary to play its own role, to see that the political class doesn't interpret the concept of secularism and the composite culture differently as they have been doing, because it is going to affect the realization of our constitutional goals. And therefore, I think it has been very well articulated and had been said at the time when the Chief Justice was there, and he has, of course, in back of his mind what has been going on in the last 2 years. I need not remind, though he doesn't mention, but he does talk about the intolerance, he doesn't talk about, but of course that may be on his back of mind, that the Ghar Wapsi, love jihad, what to eat, what not to eat, and Jai Bharat Mata ki Jai, and all that. And that he refers indirectly to this, and this is going to impact the Indian polity and the secularism, and therefore he calls upon the judiciary to interpret. And he also makes a mention of Article 32 of the Constitutions, right, and Article 226 of the High Courts, where they have the jurisdiction. And you, as you pointed out, quoting what the Mr. Nariman has said, Nariman, he has also been quoted in his piece also, where he says that one of the major challenges of the 21st century would be to protect the minorities from the onslaught of the majority. This is what the Nariman and the Rajiv Dhaman who have said, and he has quoted it.
Yes.
So the point here is that there is something which is going on, and the political class has not been keeping with the spirit of the Constitution, and therefore the expectation is from the judiciary to come and play its own role that has been vested with them.
Okay. Mr. Katju?
Look,
one second. Mr. Katju, do you agree with this theory that the political perceptions about these issues have been in a way what the Vice President also talks about, they have been interpreting in their own way. Obviously, what he means is interpreting in their own way means to their advantage. And so now we can only depend on the judiciary.
Listen, I don't think we can depend on the judiciary for all kinds of social engineering in this country. I think the impulse of social engineering arises from society, and it has to be manifested through the political process. The judiciary is like an empire. But as I read the text of what the Vice President has said, and he is a very erudite person, in fact, he's been my guru. I've served under him in different capacities during my career. That there are 2 points he makes. The first is that the state must be equidistant
Yes.
and must be minimally involved in matters relating to religion. I think that is the first proposition that he is making.
Yes. Keeping religion and politics apart.
The second proposition he makes is that India's composite culture is not from one source, but it is from
Various
multiple sources. Now, let's keep the minority issue apart. The question is that does the state have a role in modernizing communities or not? Does it have a progressive role or not? For example, if the state has to be equidistant and minimally involved in religion, then was the Hindu Code Bill wrong? There were many in the 1950s who thought that the state had no business in intervening in Hindu personal law. Now, if the state has a right to modernize the personal laws of the majority, then surely by the same token, triple talaq, which is not there in any modern Islamic society, the state has a bounden duty to intervene, or will, if the vice president's principle be adopted, then where does it lead us? That is something that I think. Second.
No, does he have a problem with that? Do you think he has a problem with that?
No, he is, I don't know. I don't know really. He hasn't articulated
He
that.
hasn't articulated that.
Second, there is, just as there are other constitutional provisions, there is a constitutional provision relating to a common civil code. It is there in the Constitution. What do we do to that? And the judiciary has articulated many times that it must be enacted. Now, if the state has a minimal role in this, then should, in perpetuity, the quest for a common civil code, which is part of the directive principles which the judiciary itself has said is fundamental to the governance of the state, of this country, should that be bypassed forever and ever? What will be the nature and scope of the common civil code is a different issue. So these are very complex issues. As far as culture is concerned, of course, it is not from one source. It is absolutely right to say that we are a multi-cultured, multi-layered society. But then, what will be the public culture of this country?
What?
That it has, look.
Is it a majority culture?
In my experience of living abroad in many societies, including Islamic societies, during my service career, I have seen that the public culture of countries is infused with the culture of the majority. It cannot be otherwise. Now, that doesn't mean that minorities, religious minorities or other minorities do not have space. They have space and should have space, and that is the constitutional guarantee.
So that is exactly...
To fully live their lives as they want to.
So
but these are very complex issues.
If the culture is majoritarian, as you...
It is not majoritarian. Please, majoritarian.
If the majority culture is infused...
Will be, please, I'm very careful in choosing my words. I'm saying it will be infused with that.
Okay.
It cannot but be otherwise.
Okay. If it is infused with the majority's culture, then so much more the reason why minorities need to be protected?
Of course they should be protected.
Okay.
Who's saying they
Okay,
shouldn't be protected?
Mr. Kamal Farooqui, how do you react to this?
No, in fact, I have heard Mr. Katju a lot and I have great respect for him. But today, whatever he has said, in fact, it's a very polished kind of a statement, which otherwise could have been made by any RSS man. In fact, I'm sorry to be very blunt on this, because what actually he's talking about, he's talking about in a No, please.
Okay.
Please you are a Muslim leaguer now. This is not RSS, man. Why are you raising all this? I think please withdraw this. Please, I'll appeal to you. Withdraw. I have nothing to do with the RSS.
Mr. Farooqui.
Okay. Okay. For a while, I'm withdrawing it. But sir, tell me, when you talked about the Mediterranean,
I'm not saying Mediterranean.
You have referred about the other countries.
I did not say this.
One second.
This is what you have said.
Let us listen to it.
That is what actually meant, sir. Sir, with all with all my respect for you, must say, basically you meant it in so many words. You might not have used that word of vegetarian, but that is what actually referred to. And you also said about the minorities. Suddenly you brought in the triple talaq without even, you know much better about the Islam and other religion because you have worked in various Islamic countries also. You know that triple talaq and divorce and other things, they are the basic concept of Islam. In fact, you may not agree, I also don't agree with the way that it is being used, but that should not be a kind of instrument to malign the Muslim community in such a fashion as if this is happening only in Muslim
you can come back. Let him have his
sir, you did not refer to. You did not refer to the tribal issues. You did not refer to the other communities which have got the problem. What actually I meant to say that we basically in this country, we are a signatory to the covenant on the minorities' rights, and the minorities' rights is very specifically, of course, as far as the secularism is concerned, it came later, but definitely the whole concept was very clear that as far as the country is concerned, there would be a lesser amount, the least point of involvement in the religion by the state. But is it happening today? Is it happening the way the whole thing is being coming up? Beats the triple talaq, beats the beef, beats the Vande Mataram, beats the Bharat Mata ki Jai. But what are you trying to tell us? That it will be, if the majority says that you have to bow before the country, then I would leave my religion into pieces and I will bow because Mr. Katju is saying like this or other people are saying this. Is it the way the country can move? And do we have this problem with the Muslims only? We have the problems across the country because we are fortunate enough to have the largest number of the religion, largest number of the tribals. What actually we are trying to do? Of course, that is Directive Principle 44 is already there, but that does not mean that it would be used in such a blunt manner that everybody and anybody would talk about this in such fashion. So basically what VP has said, VP has very rightly shown the concern, and I'm sorry if anybody is taking it as the Vice President Muslim has said this. Vice President has got all the duty to rack up this issue because the country is facing during the last 2 years, which has not been faced during the last 60 years earlier. That is our concern. Where are we going in? How are we moving in taking our country? That is what actually, I'm sorry, Mr. Katju, if I have,
I'm glad you said that. Okay, I'm glad you said that, Mr. Farooqui. I hope Mr. Katju is. We'll set that. And yes, you can respond.
I only hope I am not being deliberately misunderstood. I am raising conceptual issues.
Okay.
These are conceptual issues. Should the state then have no role in matters relating to religion?
Okay. Ashok Tandon.
Least role.
Okay.
Least role, Mr. Katju, least role.
So then was the Hindu Code Bill wrong? Please tell me that.
Government is playing.
Then was the Hindu Code Bill wrong?
Sir, that is for the Hindu.
Then who will? It's not a question
I mean,
of
it is
Code
the same
Bill.
thing. Either you intervene or you don't intervene. Does Parliament should say we have no role in this?
Okay, Ashok Tandon.
By the principle of minimal involvement.
Ashok Tandon, separating religion from the state. This seems to have become an issue. Of course, it is one of the issues raised by the Vice President. How do you look at it? And Mr. Katju's point that, what about Hindu Code Bill? Or somebody will say that, why Hajj is being supported by the state? All these issues.
No, I
have no problem with that.
I think we are deviating from the core issue for which we are assembled here to debate. Now, why I say so is that, I think we will be unfair when we start discussing the centrality of the judiciary without discussing the role of the legislature and the executive. So, this role of the judiciary will come only when the legislator or the executive had done something wrong. So,
is there sorry to interfere. I have a question. Do you think that there is some kind of implication in the statement when judiciary is being approached to clarify these points, that there has been a failure on the part of the legislature and the executive?
I was coming to that point, Girish. Okay. We should have full confidence in our legislative as well as executive. So why I say so is, forget about the individual statements coming from certain quarters. Has the executive done anything wrong? Or if at all executive has done something wrong, which is by way of bringing a legislation before the Indian Parliament, and has the legislature also erred in adopting it? So why are we jumping to the conclusion that we straight away go to the judiciary? I think somewhere in this whole speech, there is an apprehension that there might be failure at the level of the executive, or maybe at the level of legislature, which I think is totally misplaced, because there is only one instance in the Indian history since independence where the executive, the legislature all erred by imposing emergency in this country, and thereby the judiciary also failed. So my contention is that let's have faith in the people of this country. Let us have the faith in the elected governments who are the executive. If they somehow bring a wrong legislation, we should have faith in the legislature. It will not adopt that wrong legislature. And once, see, unless a law has been enacted which is in violation of the Constitution, we should not invoke judiciary. See, simply because certain people here and there are making statements which has absolutely no relevance, we can't jump to the conclusion and ask judiciary to intervene. Judiciary can intervene only when a law has been enacted in violation of the Constitution of this country. So do we presume in this speech that the executive has had or is contemplating something which is in a violation of the Constitution? Unless that proposed law is brought before the legislature, let the legislature also adopt it. I'm raising a very fundamental issue, sir.
I know.
We
But my
can't
question is
invoke
this.
judiciary straight away.
No, but my
Let us
question-
have faith
sir,
in
my
the
question
executive
is
of
this.
this country and
No,
the
no.
legislature of this country.
No.
That is why I cited the instance of emergency in which the executive had as well as the legislature had, and that led to the failure of the judiciary.
Okay,
I have full confidence in the Indian Constitution, whereby executive cannot violate the Constitution,
Ashok
and if they
Tandon.
try to do so, legislature will not allow them to do that. And if both of them do that, then the role of judiciary will come in.
No, Mr. Ashok Tandon, my question, I don't think, from
Girish,
what...
I've got a very small point.
I'll come to you, Mr. Farooqui. I'll come to you, Mr. Farooqui.
Just a small point, Girish.
I'll come to you, Mr. Farooqui. Mr. Ashok Tandon, my question, my point is this: from what I have, from my own understanding of the reading of the speech of the Vice President, I don't think he's talking only of the legislature or he's talking of the laws. He's talking of the general atmosphere which has created this kind of a thing. The atmosphere has nothing to do with that.
Why should the Vice President of India have apprehension?
No, that is a valid
Simply
question.
because some people are making
That is a valid question you have. That's a valid question, but it's not just about laws. Yes, Mr. Farooqui, very quickly.
Girish, I'll answer that.
Yes.
Girish, I will answer that.
Yes.
Yeah, very quickly an answer. Ashok Bhai, yes, you are absolutely right. The problem comes when the executive and legislature they start taking that action. That action has already started taking, and the recent example is the Aligarh Muslim University Act. And you know the background of the whole thing, that earlier it was Aziz Pasha case, which was overturned by the parliament, and the legislation was passed. Aligarh Muslim University Act, bringing in the minority and section 52C, was brought in over there. But suddenly, I don't have a problem if the BJP and RSS people want to change it, but there is a process. If at all it has to be done, it has to be done through the legislation. Yes, you have got the majority, you can do this also, but they are not doing this.
Okay.
What they are doing, they are in fact questioning the authority of the legislation itself.
Okay.
Which was
Mr. Farooqui.
That is the problem, and that is where a vice president has got the apprehension.
Okay, Mr. Farooqui, I think you have made the point, Professor Pant.
Girish,
yes.
at the risk of being branded another closet RSS person, I must say that I'm in total agreement with what Mr. Katju has said. I think the problem is complex. It has to be handled conceptually, and I think the words mean a thing.
Sorry, one small question you can add to it. But that's the point which I was making. When do you think that from the reading of the speech, do you think this is all about the Vice President's concern is all about the legislature? The concerns about the laws, or is it concerns about the atmosphere?
No, I don't think so. I think just before we entered the studio, we were having a discussion that I think the unfortunate part in this whole issue is that the Vice President has a name and a religion. So most people will impute motives and say that
Right.
he took advantage of a particular situation to focus on certain issues. I think I began my remarks by in the first session saying that he's an erudite person whose integrity is above reproach, and as Katju Sahab said, he's been his guru. I have had the good fortune of working with him in a JNU board meeting and committee meetings. Without getting into personalities, I think the issue is complex. The issue needs to be handled conceptually, and I think what
Mr. Ansari.
what Mr. Farooqui was saying is a bit of like Alice in Wonderland. You did not say so, but you meant this. I mean, you can't change the meanings of the words arbitrarily. Majority is majority and majoritarianism is majoritarianism.
Exactly.
So Hinduism is Hinduism and Hindutva is Hindutva. So let's not get into these, you don't say that I choose to think that you meant this and this is what you meant. So I think that's very grossly unfair. I think I also would like to be in agreement with Ansari Sahab, who used a very interesting phrase. He said the political class. I think the issue is not confined to political class. If you talk in terms of composite culture, political class is a subset of the masses, and we tend to dismiss the masses of this country as ignoramuses who are led like a flock of sheep by the political classes or the elite. I think no amount of judicial intervention or legislation, however rational, can change the composite culture. We go back referring to the past 2 years. Girish, just one more moment. If this millennia-old composite culture in this country can be torn to tatters by 2 years of misguided zealots of the lunatic fringe of the majority party, I think there was no composite culture. The composite culture of this country should have strength to hold against all the disturbances we are going through.
Okay, so are you're implying that the culture is strong enough to withstand this kind of...
I'm not implying, sir, I'm explicitly
You're explicitly stating
I
that.
have
Okay.
deep faith in that.
You have a deep faith in that. Mr. Ansari, very quickly.
I would say two things.
Yes.
One, the fact that the Vice President has made this speech in an academic institution, that is in a university. And of course, academic institution is a place where lots of ideas could be examined, discussed. And so it has a great deal of academic value also. But at the same time, he also talks, which I may repeat what I said earlier, he talks about the failings of both the Indian state in implementing the policies because the practices.
Absolutely.
And at the same time, he also refers to the inconsistency in the various decisions or interpretation given by the
court itself.
about the secularism, about the various,
Absolutely.
and of which the political class is taking undue advantage and trying to promote the idea of secularism in their own way. And that is what has been the key
I
to
think,
the problem.
sir, I think...
in the last 2 years, this is what we have been seeing.
I think you have made a very, very good points. Mr. Katju, I hope you'll agree with him on these issues, that on what he says, that, that the concern is about how, these issues, the issues of secularism, the rights of minorities, have been very inconsistently applied or in the past. And that is why there's a need for a clarification from something like the Supreme Court on these issues.
The Supreme Court's process is an evolving process. Just as society has evolved, courts have evolved. It's happened in all countries. Now, the courts are duty bound to protect rights, especially the rights of minorities on that. And it is not only religious minorities. For example, the court has...
Absolutely. And all minorities.
In transgender cases, what has the court said? It has given a path-breaking judgment.
Also in the case of, linguistic minorities.
In all minorities.
All minorities.
It is a protector. But the problem which I have is this.
Yes.
That the courts lay down principles. They cannot but do otherwise. They cannot issue exhaustive guidelines. They cannot have something like frequently asked questions. My last point. Therefore, the interpretation will naturally be subject to the prevailing ideologies of different sections of the political class.
Okay.
And why should we be surprised by that? That is natural.
Okay.
And this, I hope, is not like speaking like an RSS man.
Okay. Ashok, very quickly, last words. But you think that this debate which has come out of which has come out from this speech is something which needs to be debated? You agree at least that there is need for a debate on this?
Debate is the essence of democracy. And I'm glad that India is a vibrant democracy where we discuss all issues. So let there be debate on every issue, but we also should have confidence in our system.
Okay.
We should have confidence in our constitution, in our legislature, in our executive, and then come to judiciary.
Okay, okay. So I think on that note, on that positive note, let us end this debate. But it has been a very interesting debate, which hopefully will be taken forward, and we'll get some more clarity on this issue, because some of the concerns raised by people here are real concerns, and I'm sure some of the concerns which have been raised by the Vice President itself are also very real concerns. Thanks to all my guests. Please keep watching. We'll come back with Andhrush in the big picture same time.